Welcome to LYLAS. If you grew up in the 90s, you probably know what that stands for. And by default, this podcast is for you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today's a fun one. We're looking forward to it because we're talking about energy.
Yeah, that's funny. I guess it is a fun one. I was telling you before we pressed record that I journaled about it this morning because I was noticing my energy yesterday. And part of it's just noticing. You can't always just, take care of your energy on the spot. But I was noticing my energy a lot yesterday. I look really tired today. Oof.
I think you look like an angel. I already told you this like 3 times.
We do these early morning recordings now to accommodate my work schedule, and it's a rush some days to try to. I dumped about 18 pounds of dry shampoo in my hair. Not that I really care what I look like on here, but best foot forward, right?
There we are. Here we go.
Energy. It's the energy
baby.
you bring. So
Energy
today's topic is talking about our energy. Last week we talked about manifestation, and we sort of talked a little bit about energy, I feel like, as part of that conversation. But when we were discussing topics, Sarah came up with this idea of like, we often say words that don't match the energy that we're putting out. I was like, that is so true. How many times have you had a conversation with somebody, like passing them in passing and been like, hey, how are you? And you're like, oh, I'm great. How are you? It's very like, surface level, which most of those interactions are anyway. But how often, what if we just were like, I'm actually not doing so well today? Or like, actually, shit sucks right now.
Yes.
What if we were honest with the energy? Because you can kind of feel when someone's words aren't matching the energy they're bringing.
100%. And I think that whenever I was thinking about that topic, I was just kind of, being reflective of all the times, just like you said, whenever we say that we're fine, because that's a typical like female phrase, I feel. And so I'm going to be a little stereotypical there. You see all the memes, everybody gets it, whatever. But I think it's now maybe even more global that everybody is just trying to like pick up on that. But it's very rarely, I think, accurate to the internal vibes that are being projected out. And more and more, I feel like within our culture, society, social media, whatever, we're talking about energy, how we can all feel it. Well, this isn't a new concept, but I think it's one that we're actually willing to start paying attention to as we're all trying to, it seems like, as a collective, be more introspective, wondering what the hell's going on. How can we do this whole self-improvement thing? Energy keeps coming up in these different conversations and in books and stuff. And it's, again, not a new concept because we are technically a bioenergetic field because our body is always projecting energy. It's always making energy. Our brain is firing 10,000 different things at once. Our heart is pumping 10,000 different things at once. But our emotional energy also has the ability to transcend all barriers and to be used as a warning system or as a communication tool. And that was an evolutionary kind of development that we had as humans that I guess is, we thought we were getting smarter. We forgot that that was something that is a part of our being. And now we're just so used to kind of walking around and saying things that don't match, or really not, like you said, kind of paying attention to our own energy, or then not paying attention to it whenever we walk into a room or a space, or sometimes we absorb other negative energy without even necessarily realizing it. And it's all because energy is natural and it is being created 24/7. We bring it and we take it, but we're not often very aware of what we're bringing or aware of what we're taking away. And that can totally influence everything, I think, on our day-to-day lives.
You said that so beautifully and opened that Pandora's box of really all the things that there are to talk about when we talk about energy. Most of the time when I was growing up, and I would say even until I really started doing this work, like self work, over the last several years. Um, I tended to think of like energy levels in terms of like how productive I was and how, what kind of workout I did that day. Like, what kind of energy do I have to give to my daily, you know,
Mm-hmm.
means or whatever, those things that you do each day. And now I think energy much more, like you said, it's much more self reflective of like, what am I bringing to the table? What am I absorbing? I am definitely an absorber of energy. And or not even that, I'm an energy match. So whoever I come in contact with, I tend to match their energy. If they're really high, I'm really high. If they're really low, I go low. And that's something that I'm just trying to notice and be more aware of. Like, I want to bring a certain energy with me. I tend to
Mm-hmm.
be like, want everybody to laugh, have a good time, and just a very like happy, positive type of energy. But I definitely, that people pleaser, that recovering people pleaser in me will match someone's energy. And even if it's like negative and something that I've gone into the situation going, I really don't want to engage in that kind of talk or energy, I tend to fold and I was thinking, as I was journaling about this morning, I was like, why do we do that? Right? Why do we match energy? Is it to feel connected to people? I think that's probably why I do it. I crave human connection, and so I do it a lot of times to feel like a part of a group or that that connection with somebody. If you can
Mm-hmm.
match their energy, a lot of times you tend to get on the same wavelength. But I think we do it for lots of reasons. Unknowingly, a lot of times we do it. We let people bring us down. And in turn, we let people bring us up. We all have those friends that immediately, when you know you're about to see them in person, your
Mm-hmm.
energy skyrockets. Like, you just internally get very excited.
Mm-hmm.
And that transcends when you're together. It's that like almost like combustible energy that happens, sort of like when we get together in
Right.
person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we do it for all kinds of different reasons, but just the noticing of what you're bringing to the table is so
Mm-hmm.
important.
Yeah. It really is because I don't know where we lost that sense. And I do think that it is like a sense. We always think about like our five senses and then now like this sixth sense, but it's a sense of energy has always played a role in our development as human beings because it was originally kind of designed to help us to differentiate danger,
Mm-hmm.
and to be hyper aware of certain situations. And then, we got caught up in our phones and television, distractions, whatever else. And we seem to have lost like that internal sensing system,
Mm-hmm.
and now we're just starting to repay attention to it and we don't understand it. Sometimes even within our own selves. We don't even know whenever we're bringing maybe a negative energy to the table, or whenever, we're sluggish because we're getting up out of bed and getting the kids to school, but the energy that we're bringing to that process isn't conducive to what they're doing or getting ready to do
Mm-hmm.
during that day. And then that
Mm-hmm.
energy gets transferred to them, and now they're
Mm-hmm.
off to school feeling crabby. And then the problem too with us not being, I think, aware of our um, energy that we are emitting is that it then creates an opportunity for others to write stories about what's happening within that
Mm-hmm.
individual. And this is where, as a person of, also self-work and working on development, I guess I should have been a writer, for Christ's sakes, because I love to just sit there and
Minus your
write
spelling.
story. Right, yeah, except that. Thank God for Grammarly and like spell check for the most part. Um, Still messes up though. But I like to write stories about what's going on whenever a person's energy or their actions don't meet, you know what I mean, what the hell's going on. And so I'll write a story about it. And then I look for confirming evidence based upon what is happening instead of what is actually the truth.
Yeah.
So a good example of this is that, again, let's say your partner, somebody comes home and you're just feeling fine. You're just hanging out, doing whatever, kitchen chores, whatever. Really, everything, you're just chill or open. to whatever's getting ready to kind of like happen or walk in. But if they say they're fine, but you can tell that there's like a prickly energy there, then
Mm-hmm.
that can lead to an automatic thing. Well, if they say that things are fine, everything's great at work, but then they come home and you can sense that there's a difference, then the story gets written. Well, if they're coming home and feeling this way, maybe it's the fact that they're coming home. Maybe they don't
Mm,
like what they're coming home to. Maybe you've done something wrong. Maybe they're aggravated to how the house looks. You know what I mean? Then you start to write that story because the words don't match the energy.
right. And you're
And
looking for the truth.
yeah, I remember sometimes whenever I would come home from work, and the way that I would describe my days was not through a necessary feeling, but through an action.
Mm,
So I would say that, how was your day today? I feel like it was productive, or you know what I mean. It was.
mm-hmm.
I got a lot of things done, and so it's not like I can go into and tell everybody, well, you know what I did today.
Right.
um, and so that would always carry a certain energy. All of us bring that in
Mm-hmm.
and we wake up with it. We get it transferred through our interactions throughout the day whenever
Mm-hmm.
we come home from work. And I think it's important for us just to kind of check in with ourselves. And like you said, if we probably just need to normalize if we're feeling shitty, just say, you know what, I'm feeling pretty shitty. Or I'm
Mm-hmm. Or
feeling
I'm
pretty
gonna.
upset with myself because I've been fucking up a lot lately. Or, I'm pretty disappointed. Or, I'm aggravated because of X, Y, and Z. I mean, can we not just go back to normalizing emotions if we're really trying to target, stigma breaking mental health or whatever?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Saying the word fine is not helping this situation.
Well, and like I told you yesterday, I think fine can convey a certain message. Like certain things are fine. They're not good. They're not bad. They're fine.
If it's
But
accurate.
if that's
Mm-hmm.
accurate,
Mm-hmm.
but like if you're struggling with something and you tell people I'm fine, that's not accurate. You're not,
Right.
you're struggling, and that's okay to be a little bit more. You may not say that to a stranger or an acquaintance. You may not be like unloading on them in the grocery store when they ask how you are, but you might say something like, I'm doing all right. I'm taking it a day at a time. Like whatever it is, that honest.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of that just comes with that awareness of like, how am I? That's what we talked about last week on
Mm-hmm.
meditation, like really taking that pause each day to check in with yourself. And it changes. I don't know about you, but it changes for me. Like yesterday, I was flying high. I was feeling golden. I was doing my thing. And then three annoying things happened right in a row. My
Mm-hmm.
energy totally shifted. And like I knew it had shifted, and I knew that I needed to get back to that happy energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggled with that all evening last night. But I think it's more of the awareness of, okay, I'm not going to bring this into like dinner. I'm not going to bring this into like the pickup at school. To your
Mm-hmm.
point, like the morning routine, I think back when I was working in schools, how we had to be out the door by 6:15 in the morning. Like kids up, dressed, everybody's eating, out the door by 6:15. And it was like the great rush, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
every day it was just like, we got to go, got to go, got to go. And like that energy, I was setting the tone for our days because at that time my husband was traveling a lot. So it was just me. And it was like I was setting this tone for all of us. And you can, of course, always reflect back and be like, I could have done that differently, or maybe I couldn't have. I don't know. I was doing the best I could with what I had at the time and
Mm-hmm.
just trying to work on time, and get my kids to school and fed and dressed and all the things. But, I wasn't aware of this energy that I was bringing to the
Mm-hmm.
table. So just like that morning routine, and even now, sometimes like I'll get annoyed over something stupid, like, something stupid. And I try really hard not to bring that into their morning. We fresh start the minute I walk downstairs to get them up or whatever if they're not already awake. But just that awareness of how our energy affects other people. Like not only
Mm-hmm.
affect us, but affects other people. How many times have you walked into a room and you're like, "Ooh, this energy ain't good. Like, I'm
Right.
not sure I want to be in this room." Like some sort of argument, something just happened in here, and like there's
It's
residual
still there.
energy lingering, and I'm
Right.
going to exit stage left.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, you can totally feel it. There doesn't even have to be anybody in the room, but energy leaves an imprint. It's not something that
Mhm.
has to be seen in order to be felt.
Right.
I just think that what we're trying to do is understand it just a little bit deeper and how it kind of plays a role within our life.
Mhm.
Whenever I think about sometimes the energy that I'm bringing that is unintentional, if I'm working my to-do list or if I'm going through and doing chores, um, I don't look I don't look happy. I'm not
Mhm.
necessarily smiling as I'm doing this, but again, it takes a lot of concentration for me to do this stuff,
True story.
especially without the aids of any type of medication or anything. So I am staying I am putting so much into being so focused on doing this that I am more than certain I just look like a bitch just going through and doing this stuff. But it's because I'm taking so much attention and concentration on it. But that's not projecting a good, vibe, I don't think, out there. It's not that I have to struggle with it, it's just that I have to devote so much to it. But then the flip side of that is that it just looks ugly, you know?
Yeah, I, when you said that, I was like, that's so true. When we sign on, a lot of times you're like knee deep in doing your to do list or whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always like, what's wrong? What's going on? And you're always like, oh, nothing. How are you? And I'm like, oh, okay, just good. Like, you have a very flat affect when
Mm-hmm.
you are engaged in that like to-do list. And so it does, I mean, not so much your energy that you put, at least my perception, because I know
Mm-hmm.
you, the minute you open your mouth, I know, oh yeah, she's good. Um, but like I see what you're saying, like our face often sometimes doesn't match our energy.
Mm-mm.
Same thing with our words. It doesn't always match our energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like people that are like, oh, I'm good. Like if you're like, hey, how are you? And they're like, I'm good, but they have a scowl on their face. They're like, you're like, are you? Because your
Mm-hmm.
face is something else, you know? And I'm not here to say like, hey, make sure you're matching all of these things because God knows like we got enough on our plate to worry about, you know? I
Everything.
think
Yeah.
it's more of like just talking about these things as an awareness
Mm-hmm.
of how our energy that we bring to a room full of people that we
Mm-hmm.
generally care about, how we affect other people, interactions with like, people at the grocery store, whatever that is, your energy affects them good or bad. And you can see that when you have really positive, good energy, people respond. You get a lot more eye contact. You get random smiles. You get random
Mm-hmm.
compliments from people. Like it truly does transcend words
It
if you
does.
just project a really positive energy about yourself.
Mm-hmm. And the impact that that can then make is again like a rock going into a pond, like what you're talking about. You having that kind of like positive flow, good energy, then unknowingly probably affects another human being, especially if they're like an energy reader, kind of like how you describe
Mm-mm,
yourself as being. And you will never know that.
mm-mm,
But just the exposure to that kind of vibe is transformational,
yeah.
and there sometimes you just can't explain it. It just kind of like happens and it just takes you off guard. But those are the moments I think whenever it happens like that, just to be aware and to be mindful or to be aware of like triggering situations that you think could be like energy suckers, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Like for some people going to like social parties or to engagements or, airports, leaving the house, any of those things can be things that affect a person's energy that they're projecting out there and may not be about you.
Right. Oftentimes it's not about you, it's about whatever that person is internally dealing with, good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to your point, like noticing other people's energy and trying your best not to let it affect you. Like that's something I definitely work on because, like I said, I'm definitely a people pleaser and
Mm-hmm.
it's just, I've practiced it for so long. So it's going to take me a long time to break that habit. I think a good example I can give is I tend to, if I've been in a social situation where people are talking negatively about somebody else I know,
Mm-hmm.
I, you know, at times I will engage in that conversation. And I always, even if I don't engage in the conversation or I don't really have much to say, I still always leave those situations feeling just like icky. Like,
Yeah.
ugh, it's just not what I'm trying to put out in this world. It's
Mm-hmm.
not who I'm trying to be. It's not who I'm trying to put out. And and so how do you still maintain relationships without always matching people's energy? You know, of like somebody did you wrong. Yeah, you want to bitch about it to your best friends, but like how do you keep from always like matching that and just shifting conversations? And that's just one example, but like any of those, you know, being around somebody that's just chronically in a bad mood,
Yeah.
how do you you might love that person very much, how do you shift and not match the energy? I think is uh,
Mm-hmm.
something I think about as someone who tends to do that.
No, I totally agree. I mean, all things being real, we do kind of, as humans, just enjoy a good gossip session. You know what I mean? Or a good venting session. Like, there's something that we all kind of get out, maybe, of that type of release. But whenever we walk away from it feeling so negative and downtrodden and be like, man, that's not really what I wanted to do, it's hard because in that moment, it feels so cathartic.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, we're lots of times firing on all cylinders or at least some heavy duty ones. And anytime we can get a cathartic release, it's almost that we just go for broke on that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and almost in those moments, it may not even matter what the consequences are. If I can just get this off my chest, then that weight's been lifted. But then the consequences of that aren't always apparent because it feels good to get it off the chest.
Mm-hmm.
And then the old shit moments happen. You know what I mean? Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm fucked up. I probably could have let go on this. Probably could have waited 24 hours, whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so whenever you were talking, I was sitting there saying, man, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck to do in those situations. You know, maybe it is give into it for a few minutes, but then try to turn it around to some positive. That's the only thing I can think of.
Or
Like,
just shift
as you
the
were saying it,
conversation.
yeah, shift the conversation. Just be like, you know what? I'm just going to meditate on it and walk
Mm-hmm.
away. I'm going to say a little prayer that hopefully the situation amends itself and we all walk away from it being happier, better people. Maybe that's the way. So that way you get both. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you have to acknowledge people's whatever they're complaining about. I think about if you're working in a, you know, with a group of people, and there's always going to be things that annoy different people. And so, my typical role in a school, I'm the person that people vent to,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I did a better job in my professional of not like matching that energy. You know, a lot of times I
Mm-hmm.
was always trying to like see, can I help you see this from a different perspective? Or let's problem solve. How can we do this? It's more of like social situations where I tend to match energy versus like, I feel like professional situations.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just have a different air about me. That, you know, and not to say that I don't, there has definitely been times that I still like somebody comes in to bitch about somebody else that annoys me. Yes, I'm going to partake in that. Am I going to feel good about it? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's interesting just how different like roles we play in life can also bring out different energies that we have.
Yeah.
I tend, you know, I feel like I'm a very positive person, half glass full, like we
Mm-hmm.
can do anything, we can solve anything. But, you know, if I'm around somebody that's like, this sucks, these people suck, we're never going to get this done, blah, 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 you know, I'm like, even if I don't agree, it lowers my frequency, you know, and
Absolutely.
I'm like, yeah, why are we doing this? Are we? I mean, I think we can, but like, ugh, this, you know, it just,
Mm-hmm.
again, how do we not let other people's energy affect us? And I don't know. Maybe that's $1 million question. If we can figure that out,
There we go.
who
Mm-hmm.
knows what could happen?
Right. A
Um,
nice force field around us, maybe, so that way we're just
maybe
bringing in like good vibes and all the
I
bad
think
vibes are staying away.
you said something earlier though too. You said how it was like a primitive thing
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, energy. And so to me, it feels very tied to like our intuition.
Mm-hmm.
When you know something's off, but you can't put your finger on it, but like, you know, something's off.
Yeah.
And I have a very specific example I think of when I think of intuition, because we all have it. And it's really just like building that muscle.
Mm-hmm.
But I was in a grocery store late one night. This was a couple years ago. I had to go get Jack lunch meat, and I had gone to the gym, and I went to the store at like 8:30 at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I was walking around, not really paying attention. I was going through my list of like things I needed, but I had to work the next day, blah, blah, blah. And so I had noticed two men in the grocery store and they didn't have anything, but I kept passing them throughout the grocery store. And I was like, that's weird, but didn't really think much of it. And then I checked out. And as I was walking out of the grocery store, it's all glass in the front. Have I ever told you this story?
I
I feel like I've
think
told people
so.
this story,
Yeah,
but
I think I remember it.
it was all glass in the front. And I can't explain it. Like my heart is racing thinking about it now.
Oh.
Can't explain it, but I had this very loud voice in my head say, "Do not walk out that door." And it came out of nowhere. I wasn't thinking about anything. It literally just was like, "Do not walk out that door." And so I turned on a heel and went back, and there were pumpkins up in the front of the grocery store. And I was like, "Pumpkins." And
Mm-hmm.
when I turned around, one of those men was literally on my heel. Like he was
Mm-hmm.
right behind me. He had no grocery bags. He was just, and he looked very flustered. And I was like, that's weird. And I walked over to the pumpkins and I was like, just looking at pumpkins. And I could see out front. And he walked out and this car speeds up and right up in front of the door. And he walks over to the passenger side and they talk and they're looking back and we're making eye contact like through the glass. And then he gets in and they speed off. And it didn't dawn on me. I'm like something felt so energetically. It was I can't
Yeah.
describe it other than it was like something bad was about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, and I'll never know. But I remember like shaking after that whole scenario. So it was like that. I don't know where that thought came from, but like that energy.
Yep.
Like being and at the time, like I said, I was way down the rabbit hole of like my to-do list and what I needed to get and blah 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 what was coming ahead. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really like picking up on energy and thinking about stuff like this the way I am now, but in looking back in retrospect, I'm like there was some sort of warning signal happening in
Yeah.
my body of like this is not a something felt unsafe. That's the only way I know how to describe it.
That's it. That's it. And that's what I think from again, from an evolutionary standpoint, us being able to sense energy was a survival tool. It
Mm,
wasn't just based upon what we were able to see within the actual scope of our eyes or vision or hear. It helped us to understand, is this a good place to bed down? You know what I
mm,
mean? It was a way to gather information and then to use it to help us out. But
mm,
then we just have not paid as much attention to that system as what we were designed to do. And now we're confused whenever we start to pay attention to it or read it because, using your analogy, it's a muscle that we haven't worked. And so
mm-mm,
we don't understand its function within our life. We misread it. Um, we make up stories about it. We join into others. It's not being used as what it was designed to do. And so now we're confused. And then that leads us to miscommunicating a lot of times, I think, what our true feelings are because we just don't understand what is necessarily happening from an energetic level.
well, we're
And
so distracted. I mean,
so distracted.
I know we talk about it as a society, but I often think like, what if I would have been on my phone that, like, I don't know what was going to happen. It could have
Mm-hmm.
all been coincidental. I'm not, going to say one way or the other. I can just tell you that when you talk about feeling off and some sort of alarm going off inside of you, that is like that is ingrained in my head,
Yeah.
that experience. And, what if I would have been on the phone with somebody? What if I would have been looking at my phone? What if
Mm-hmm.
what if I would have had my kids with me? Like there's just so many distractions in life, natural, unnatural, like whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that we tend to kind of walk around just very distracted. And I'm certainly guilty of that. A lot of times I have my headphones in when I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so it's really when you peel back that distraction and pay attention
Mm-hmm.
to like what you're doing, what other people are doing. That's where you start to pick up on these things
Mm-hmm.
like energy and intuition. I mean, I feel like it's all got to be related. And
Oh,
I am no
definitely.
expert in this, but the more we talk about it, the more it all seems so integrated to me.
Mm-hmm. And I think it just, I don't even know that, again, we kind of understand fully what it is. There's, and this will be like a to be continued kind of a thing. Um, Back in the beginning of the new year, I started being really focused on, I wanted to learn about energy. You know, I'd finished my yoga teacher training. I'm a goal oriented person, need to have something else up there I'm learning about. And so I got books on physics and physiology, human physiology. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I know that these two things are connected. I understand. I just don't understand quite how.
Mm-hmm.
Lo and behold, another books I started looking at it came out called The Quantum Body, which takes it's actually by Deepak Chopra, but there's a
Oh,
whole
okay.
bunch of other like studies that then like I went down a big rabbit hole and found that use um, energy to explain body mechanics because now we
Mm-hmm.
have the technology, now we have the science to kind of understand how quantum physics can be used to understand our body's processes because it is an energy field. We've just never done that before because we never allowed ourselves to think in that direction. But everything about our body is physically emitting energy. We use energy to correct our body. That's why we shock somebody whenever their heart goes, you know what I mean, goes out.
Mm-hmm.
That's an electric shock that goes into to restart something. We have chemical processes that are changing our body's composition 24/7. Our brain is like a power plant, again, constantly, never stopping, sending, firing messages. The we emit so much just in our own physiological processes that we're not paying attention to just on our own, but that this type of science can help to understand and explain. And then we can take that and see how emotions then change all of this because
Mm-hmm.
emotions change our heart rate, which makes our heart have to work harder. There are studies that show whenever you meditate, I was watching this the other day, yesterday. Um, Whenever you put on like brain scans and somebody's sitting there talking and then you ask them to meditate even for a minute, it shows how their brain waves automatically decrease
Mm-hmm.
and everything goes to a different place and setting for a minute. And that is the long that this person did it. And then they started talking again and you could see everything reset. And the only thing they were doing was that. And so, again, what we are now having is what we consider, I guess, in Western culture, actual science based things to validate all of these other processes. And what it really, I think, comes down to is us just really, again, diving into understanding these things that make us up, how our
Mm-hmm.
energy affects us internally, which then gets projected outwards. And then we use our language to define what that is. And I mean, a lot of times probably inaccurately or as a way to like save face or save grace instead of saying, you know what,
Mm-hmm.
like you said it great last week in the episode. You said things feel heavy right now. Why aren't we just
Mm-hmm.
saying that? I mean,
Right.
that's fair.
Life is heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an honest reflection of something. Let's go with that.
Mm-hmm.
It feels troubled,
Mm-hmm.
conflicted. I mean, these are great words that we
Working
just,
through some shit.
right, whatever. It's, you know what I mean? It's fine to not be fine. That's even a quote on our website. We probably need to put in there. It's also fine to feel X, Y, and Z as well.
Yeah.
Let's just start to. But whenever you're able to say what it is that you are truly feeling on an energetic level, you feel in alignment at that point. And there's not
Mm-hmm.
a discrepancy that then creates another source of underlying conflict that then maybe we don't understand and then leads to some other frustration bubble later on down the road.
So much of it, when you were talking about that, I thought that so much of that has come from, I think, the way we were raised. And this isn't to shit on
Mm-hmm.
our parents by any stretch of the imagination because they were raised the same way. But you tend, I remember, I don't know if it was even ever explicitly like told to me, but like you put a brave face on in public.
Mm-hmm.
And I know many people that are that way. It's like we don't talk about certain things in public. We don't, you know, you put that face on and you get your mask and you go out into the world. And I can remember going to work and just I always wanted to be smiling. Because I worked around kids and I wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
a positive, safe place for children and they get a lot of scowls throughout the day from other adults. And I wanted to be that person that when they thought of me, they thought of a
Mhm.
smile on her face.
Mhm.
So I made that conscious effort every single day, walking through the halls, passing kids to smile, say good morning, make eye contact, all of those things. And, but there were a lot of mornings I didn't feel like smiling and I didn't
Mhm.
feel like making eye contact with people. And, but I did it because, I had a goal in mind of like, I was trying to be this person. But what if, and now I'm just like thinking out loud, what if I would have been more in alignment with how I was feeling each day? You can still say good morning and make eye contact and say, you know what, I'm a little blue today. I'm a little sad.
Yeah.
What if I would have modeled that for them? Because I feel like behavior that's been modeled for us midlifers at this point is that you put a smile on your face and the show goes on and here we go.
Right.
And that's just not the case. It feels very disingenuous
Mhm.
to do that. And, or at least it feels hard to do that. There was something they said during the retreat, like, they had us like breathe in and hold
Oh
our
yeah.
breath. And they were like,
Mhm.
notice how uncomfortable it is to do something not natural.
Yep.
And same to the same point, when you are really struggling with something and someone asks you how you're doing and you say, I'm good. How are you?
Mhm.
Think of just how hard that is to
Yeah.
do something that, you know, isn't true or aligned with how you truly are feeling at that time.
Mhm. Mhm. And then we just do it perpetually. And
Mm-hmm.
wonder why we're a hot mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why
We
we're
try to
always
convince
feeling.
ourselves everything's fine. We're good.
Yeah.
You know, when in, reality, everything is not okay.
Mhm.
And there are times when things are great. And that's when I think we should be like shouting it from the rooftops. Like, life is so good right now.
Mhm.
Acknowledge that. But when it's not good, like, acknowledge that too.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean like bring everybody down,
Mm-mm.
but just like that honest of like, I'm okay. I got some stuff going on, but I'm working through it.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily have to divulge anything. If it
Right.
naturally comes out, fine. But and this is a practice I'm going to work on because, again, we're all guilty of it. You know what I
Uh,
mean? 100%. But I think that I would feel much more aligned if I were just to be able to sit there and say, I'm just really hurt and upset right now.
mhm,
And I'm figuring out why and what's going on, but that's what's up. So it's not about you. It's not about this. I'm just in a different place in space.
mhm,
But again, from a physics standpoint, we're occupying we're occupying a place in time. And oh gosh, there's another thing that we're occupying is like a duality. So you can be in two different places at once. And then it creates energy, which can be incongruent. And then all just kind of feeds back into its own little whirlpool.
mhm.
So
I'm so
it's,
glad you're reading these books because I don't even, I mean, I can't even define quantum physics. Like, I have no effing clue what that means. And so if you could just read those and give me the cliff
right.
notes, that'd be great. It'd be like high school all over again.
Well, here's back to me, my learning disability. I have them both on Audible, and then I have
Mm-hmm.
the hard copy of it, and then I have special ink pens
Mm.
and pieces
In
of,
your Lisa Frank notebook.
in my Lisa Frank notebooks that each go with each different book. Yeah. So that way I can go through and like take notes and write on all of the stuff with it. But but it's again, it's the point of, I think, of coming to understanding. I used to have, he still teaches yoga sometimes. Somehow this individual ended up in Huntington and he was from California. He got his degree in quantum physics from like UC Berkeley, like
Mm.
brilliant genius man, fell in love with the hills, I guess, or something, came over here and was a yoga teacher. And sometimes he still teaches yoga. But he would incorporate physics into the practice and
Mm.
he would talk about like how our cells were changing and like doing all this stuff. And, again, most of the time I like to be in that and just kind of close my eyes and go with the flow of it. But with him, I was like, holy shit, this is the coolest stuff ever. Like, I've already got my doctoral degree, but can I come and sit in your classes and just listen to you talk about this? Because then it starts to make sense. You start
Mhm.
to understand that it's not just going out and doing something is that your body physically changes whenever you do stuff. And the more that you're able to understand those interactions, the more I think we're able to understand ourselves.
Mm.
And that even comes from an energetic and an emotional level. And then from our kids to our spouses to dealing with our parents or whatever, society, culture, I think we're all receiving and taking energy. And if we start to be a different link within that chain, then that can really maybe change things a whole bunch. Hope,
Mm-hmm.
there's a glass.
It reminds me also, I feel like I'm quoting a lot of the things that we heard at the retreat, but something else they had said is your body is always listening to your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts. So whether you're speaking it out loud or writing it in a journal, even what you're thinking, your body is listening to.
Yep.
And, a lot of times what we think is not true. It just isn't.
Yeah.
We tend to be our worst critics. We tend to make up stories in our head. And a lot of these things are just thoughts. They're not even real.
Mm-hmm.
And that has stuck with me. That whole that your body is listening and your body is responding to those thoughts. And so
Mm-hmm.
for somebody who is really down on themselves or making up fictitious stories, your body is listening to that and is responding to those things. And that's
Yes.
something that I'm really working on. And when I left the retreat, we had to say one thing we were going to work on. And I said, I'm going to work really hard at being kinder to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because my body, now I know my body is listening and it's responding, good or
Yep.
bad, to what I'm thinking, saying, feeling,
Mm-hmm.
anything I'm ingesting visually, auditorily, anything is affecting my body.
Yep.
And, if our whole goal is wellness, we want to make sure everything that we're ingesting is good for us. Not everything, but at least like, let's say 80% of what you ingest is good for you.
Yeah.
There's always going to be some things that, you know, it is what it is. We got to live a little, but for the most part, like we should be really conscientious of what we're taking in.
Absolutely. And then if and another little I've been reading. Some people should be really proud of me because I my dad read to me books to get through my AP whatever in honors classes in high school. I'm still using Audible for Christ's sakes, okay? So I am not
Okay. There's nothing wrong with using
oh,
tools that help us.
I'm 42.
It is what
Just
it
throwing
is.
that out there, right? And but also have the paperback version, another book with the paperback version, separate pen and paper. So to go to your point, um, it kind of goes back to that decision making podcast that I wish I would have read this at this point in time to kind of throw this out there. If you find yourself um, in a place where you need to make a decision, and says
Mm-hmm.
how to make a spontaneous right choice. Pay attention to the sensations and comfort or discomfort in your body. At the moment you make the choice, ask your body, what are the consequences of this choice? If your body sends a message of comfort, that's the right choice. If your body feels uneasiness, then that might not have been the appropriate choice. Your body always knows the answer, is what that's saying. And it's saying that because it bypasses whatever maps or stories we have created in our head,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes it straight to our gut or to our intuition to answer the question instead of all the inferences that happen.
Yeah, I can totally buy into that. I think a couple of things. You have to be really aware. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness in that. You have to be really in tune with your body. And I
Can't be
also think it's
impulsive.
yes, and I think sometimes it's hard to distinguish what makes us nervous versus what makes us excited because
Yes.
they feel, at least for me, it's the same feeling. Like your tummy, like butterflies in your tummy, like it's
Mm-hmm.
similar. And so sometimes it can be like, am I scared of this or am I excited for this? And that's where
Right.
you have to think through. And you see it all the time. People are like, if you're sitting there considering the worst case scenario, it's only fair that you are also considering best case scenario. What's
Mm-hmm.
the worst thing that could happen was the best thing. When we started this podcast, I was scared shitless to put out the content that we're putting out. Like we talk about everything on here. I mean, I have
Mm-hmm.
disclosed
Mm-hmm.
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so have you. And so I was nervous. But something inside of me was like, lean into this
Mm-hmm.
because you're nervous. Like I also think that's how we grow is by doing things that are a little bit uncomfortable.
Yep.
It's like I was never going, I don't know, it has been so freeing to just put it out there. And it is what it is, like I don't really have anything to hide. Um, obviously, I mean, shit, I feel like I've said it all on here. But but nonetheless, it still is um it's hard to distinguish sometimes what's
Mm-hmm.
fear versus excitement.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, your heart does not necessarily know the difference, and your heart is the first thing to respond to what thoughts are in your head, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where the ice trick works.
Mm-hmm.
But
Boy, does it work.
the other sense is your intuition, and that's the other body part that we need to kind of build that awareness to, because your body part of your intuition knows in the moment of a panic attack. It does. It's just silent, or it's quiet, or you
Mm-hmm.
can't hear it because everything else is firing so loud that if I breathe, if I do X, Y, and Z, then this is all going to settle. So it's working.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that
Yeah.
it's not the loudest voice. And even I would say this: your body from that kind of response is going to have the same effect if you've won the lottery or if you have a gun to your head.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Again, the situation's different, but your other self, your other sense knows how to differentiate those two things. That's the one
Mm-hmm.
that that's the one that I think is being asked in that question. Not so much like, is it from a heart rate kind of perspective, but is it that intuition, that other organ that is within ourselves, because it affects everything. Maybe we can't
Mm-hmm.
take it out or replace it, you know what I mean? But damn, it can become diseased, or silent or blocked from us in those points. So I think it's one of those
Yeah.
things we just got to continue to, like you said, bring awareness to and build. But the energy that we bring, we may not always see, but it's always present. And the energy that we take
Always.
away may not always be seen, but it's always present. And then it's the most, we used to say all the time that a mood is the most infectious disease.
Mm-hmm.
But it really, I think, is even broader than mood. It comes down to like just energy,
Mm-hmm.
just constant energy is being emitted, and it is always there and always doing something. So what? you know
Yeah. Do we wrap ourselves in bubble wrap so that we don't absorb other
right.
people's energy? How do we not match their energy and actually like have more of an impact on them? I think it just,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I haven't figured it out yet because, like I said, I notice my energy a lot more, but, stabilizing it is another thing.
Yeah, that's true.
How do we, and so that's what I was like, how do we stabilize our energy when it has shifted from what we want
Mm-hmm.
go down? I was like, you come back to the practices. Like, and that's what I did when I got my car after that third incident yesterday. And I was just like ready to lose my shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, deep breath. We're going to reset because we are not taking this into the rest of our day.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of waffled throughout the rest of the afternoon, but like, I feel like just that awareness piece and being like,
Mm-hmm.
what do I do? I can take a few deep breaths. I can meditate again if I need to. I can
Yeah.
go exercise. What are some of those practices that I can go back to that
Mm-hmm.
reset my energy?
Yeah.
Exercise always works. I don't know about you, but like
Mm-hmm.
walk, sunlight. I know for you a run, like
Mm-hmm.
exercise and movement will always reset my energy.
Yep.
I am always different after a workout than I was before
100%. 100%. No.
in a better way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um,
No, that's
so
definitely true. And then I think too, it comes down to knowing the opposite side of you, like what things are supposed to be good and cooling and releasing. And that was another thing I got out of the retreat, is that I am always, during the daytime, I am always cold, always cold. I am never warm. I don't care if it is 90 degrees outside. I will likely have a blanket or I mean, I'm just always freaking cold. Um, but cold calms me down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, I will never forget that thing in that damn plunge pool. Like, I did not feel invigorated after that. I didn't feel like I could take on the world. I felt like I was about ready just to melt into the water.
Mm. Made you sleepy.
Well, it made me just release. That was my word.
Mm.
It just released. You know what I mean? It just changed something different. It wasn't like it all had to be hard. It that, there's that old, what is it? Buddhist saying that the hot water hardens the egg and softens the potato. What a cool process
Mm.
that is. Isn't
Mm-hmm.
that, again, we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about physics and how things, chemical compounds change within different processes. But it's a good analogy to kind of think of.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how can we use those things to
Mm.
help us out within our day and time?
So
Maybe.
so interesting. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, my morning meditation completely changes my energy. I mean, by the
Mm-hmm.
time I finish it, I am so blissed out and happy and grateful. And I can come from a very different place when I close my eyes to start that meditation.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of it, once I have tuned in, I am just like I'm on a different wavelength afterwards. And so I wish, or not a wish, I will find a way to
Mm-hmm.
continue to carry that through. And maybe that is like incorporating an afternoon meditation, just some like building that into my day.
Mm-hmm.
I carry that energy into the evening because that's really, evenings are hard as parents. I mean, I'm going to assume they're hard for everybody. They're
Oh
hard
yeah.
for most of the people I talk to. Like at that point, you are kind of physically tired, mentally tired, and there's still a lot to do if you have children. Even if you don't, there's still, I mean, if you have a dog, whatever, there are things that you have to get done at night. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just, it can be hard to
Right.
remain the positive, lovely human being that you were made to be.
Right.
Those moments when your child is telling you they know how to do their homework and they're all wrong. Um,
Exactly.
it's a struggle
Mm-hmm.
to my 5-year-old knows everything, y'all. She could quit kindergarten tomorrow because she already knows everything. Um,
She's done.
so the next 12 years should be really fun for all of us,
I
and especially having an
understand.
educator mother.
Right. That'll be great. Yeah.
This should work out well.
As we drink our coffee and talk about meditation, we're
Sure.
basically going to become nuns. We're going to be like the Buddha underneath that tree for 40 days or whatever it was. So that's how we're going to
Seriously.
survive. Back to one point, for all those that are saying that energy, whatever, bumbo jumbo, we have dogs and emotional support or actual service animals that
Mm-hmm.
sense a person's energy. And I'm not even talking about an emotional support dog because people will just maybe hit all over that. But they have dogs that sense whenever an epileptic trained dog. There
Mm-hmm.
is no, what sign is that person admitting to any of us that we are able to receive and understand that this person is about ready to have a seizure? We're
Right.
not able to do that as humans, but the dog can.
Right. Which is wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, dogs pick up on energy. I can my dog, I mean, I can tell you I've had 3 dogs as an adult, and all of them, however you approach them, like they sense that immediately.
Mm-hmm.
My current dog loves to take socks. He doesn't want to chew them up. He just wants your attention. So he wants to take your socks and run around and make it a game. And I watched this in the yard last night. My husband didn't say a word, but the way he approached the dog, he cowered. And we have never hit this dog. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're very gentle dog parents. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't like hitting dogs and things like that. I just
No.
don't. I don't
Mm.
believe in same thing. I don't believe in whipping your kids. Like yes, we were raised that way, but I don't believe. I believe there are other ways to discipline
Right.
dogs and children. And anyway, I watched and just that energy. Like all he did was walk across the yard and
Mm-hmm.
rip cowered and his head lowered and the tail went between his, like he picked up on that, like dad, dad pissed,
Mm-hmm.
like I took his socks, you know? So yeah, it's amazing to me. And horses are the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember my dad being like, if you are nervous, your horse knows it. You
Yep.
have got, you need to project, you are in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and same thing. It wasn't anything I was doing, but the energy you put off, relays a message to them and they
Mm-hmm.
behave accordingly.
Every
And
other being gets this except us.
exactly, except us. I mean, a lot of people do. I think a lot of people, there are a lot of people out there that are aware of their energy. And,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I know it, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you are into wellness, you are into this type of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's a great topic to remind us to just be mindful of what you're putting out there.
Yeah.
We are we are ever growing, ever evolving humans. I feel like we are ripe in midlife to be doing this work.
Mm-hmm.
And something else to consider. You might be like, ladies, this is total bullshit. Write us and tell us that too. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on
Absolutely.
this topic. If this is something you think about, if this is something that you are acknowledging in your
Mm-hmm.
daily practice. Like I said, it's a pretty new topic for us. We have never had this conversation before
Mm-mm.
today.
Mm-mm.
But it's the more we talk about it, I'm like, actually, I could talk about this for a while. Wow. So
Oh.
that way, then I'm just a talker, I think. Oh, boy, talker.
Here we go.
It is what it is.
This might be a reapproach. Let me get down the physics hole a little bit more.
But I actually love that you're reading all these books so that we can, once you have digested all this information, come back
Maybe.
and talk about it. I know it's something I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to. I picked up a book yesterday that I have been kind of looking at. I actually put it on reserve after I read about 20 pages of it. I put it on reserve at the local library, but I think it's called Outlive. Have you heard of this book?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. And a lot of it, this is a trained medical doctor, but then he went into more like functional medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very interesting in the first 20 pages, I have to say. So I'm going to be reading that. I'm sure we're going to have some topics that come out of that, but that's also why I love this podcast and just how I keep seeing my life evolve kind of around wellness. Is that it? I'm not, I don't know if I would have picked that book up. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'm definitely more interested as we dive deeper into our own wellness journey and learning everything that I can
Mm-hmm.
to better myself and to make this easier and work smarter and not harder. I feel
Yeah.
like I've done a lot of hard work and I'm not sure that it's gotten me the results that I wanted. So I'm
And
going
that's
to
fair.
take
Right.
a different approach.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're working on. I
That's
love
right.
it because
So,
it opens up more things. And I think the more that was my word. Well, my word was space at the retreat, but I think
mhm,
open is also a good analogy for it. I think the more that you're willing to allow those permeable cracks within your outer shell, the more that you're able to do things and to change and to improve or to whatever it is that you're trying to do. But I don't think that you can do that any other way. Maybe you can. If you can, tell me about it.
we got to have a lot of self awareness, and that's
Mm-hmm.
hard. We don't like to look at ourselves,
Huh.
really take a good hard look at our lives and our behavior. Like it's really easy to look at somebody else's behavior and have
Yeah.
comments about that and what they should do. But when it
Or,
comes to ourselves, it's really hard.
well, and it's, as you say, looking at ourselves, we spend more time looking in the mirror than what we do at ourselves. How is
Mm-hmm.
that helping?
Right.
Is
Or,
that, I
or about
just
our
don't know.
wrinkles and our gray hair than we do about our behavior, thoughts,
Right.
and feelings.
Right. And so I don't, I think that that creates a situation of incongruence.
Mm.
So I'm just trying to, and I'm not saying we want everything to be on a straight line, which is congruent. I'm saying we just want to have a little bit more stability
A
than,
little bit more alignment.
yeah, a little bit more alignment.
Alignment.
Right. So there we go.
There we go. All right. Well,
Help us
That's
get you
it
good
for this
vibes for the
week.
day, right?
Yeah, let's bring that good energy. I've got a meeting this morning. I feel like I'm gonna bring some good energy. I'm gonna bring some good energy to my work today.
Mm-hmm.
I did not give the best energy off yesterday afternoon. So I'm gonna restart.
Amen.
Grateful for another day, another chance to get it right. That's what I say every morning. Thanks for another opportunity. Try again today. See
And
what
there we
happens.
go, right? And there we go.
There we go. All right. Check us out on Facebook, on Instagram. Of course, you can catch us on YouTube. But if you go to our
Mm-hmm.
social media pages, interact with us, let us know. Look for those. We have some questions on there. We want some
Mm-hmm.
more topic suggestions. I'm so grateful for all of those who like, listen, save, send, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
We are not paid podcasters. We do this
Right.
because we care about mental health. B, we want to create a community of people
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and just be real. We want to talk about real shit. And no, we are not some famous uh anything.
Mm-mm.
But
Nope.
we're women doing real things, working on wellness. And so anytime you share or just respond or interact with us, we're so appreciative. So thank you to our loyal listeners. We're
Thank you.
so grateful for you. And we'll catch you on social media. Until
Mm-hmm.
next week, ladies and gents, LYLAS.
We're out.